Hello, everybody. It is snowing quite a lot outside. So I was wondering what the lighting was going to look like. Doesn't look too funny. I might prop this up a little. So today is Sunday, February 21st, 2021. So 02/21, 2021. I didn't even think of that till just this moment. There's a lot of twos and ones going on. And it has been a little bit. So last weekend I tried to do a live, my weekly live, during our Midwifery skills workshop. And it sort of didn't work quite how we wanted to, and I didn't really have the energy in the moment to figure that out. So sorry if you were one of the people trying to check it out and who weren't able to see or hear or whatever the issues were. It was a lot of fun, and I'm sure I'm going to talk more about it today. So last weekend was that. So it's been 2 weeks since I did this format, and I'm glad to be back. This week is my birthday week. I'm going to be 32 on Sunday. So I guess technically in a week. So I guess it still is my birthday week, right? That counts. So that's exciting. Also, yesterday was my partner Russell's birthday. And of course, birth is a big thing in our family. It's a thing I, do for my living, attend births. So I feel like birthdays are extra special around here. And I mentioned this thank you, Stephanie. Happy birthday to me. I mentioned this a couple lives ago, just that we have a ton of birthdays in February. My dad and my brother also are in February. So I'm on the last day of February. I was not born in a leap year. People often ask me that if I was almost a leap year baby, but I was not. Thanks, Lauren. So let's see. I feel like I've got a lot of ground to cover today. And my heater is turned off, which is nice because it's distracting to me. I don't know if it's distracting to you, but last weekend we did the first Indie Birth Midwifery Skills workshop here in Duluth, which feels kind of like a big deal. We had 10 women come from all over to sit here in my space for 3 whole days and practice everything from, I could read the list. I have it here. Maybe I'll tell you what we talked about in practice. We did vitals. We did pulse, blood pressure, respirations. We did urinalysis. We did palpation, listening to babies' heart rates in pregnancy using a fetoscope. We did fundal height on some lovely belly models for that part of the day, which is always really fun and exciting on that first day to get to actually touch pregnant bellies. We talked about normal birth and the cardinal movements. We talked about vaginal exams. We didn't. Sorry, when I say we talked about, I mean we actually practiced. So the things that we're able to actually practice, we practiced. The things that we had to practice with, like a baby doll and pelvis, we did that. So we did vaginal exams and catheters on each other. We did breech skills, shoulder dystocia, newborn resuscitation, IVs. We even did do rectal fluids this time. This light is bothering me. How it keeps going in and out. I'll try to sit still. We usually just talk about rectal fluids, but we had somebody who wanted to be demonstrated upon. So we actually did them, which was great to show people how that actually works, and is a really great and viable option for people who don't either want to have IV equipment or can't, or can't find ways to really hone those skills for whatever reason. So we also looked at placentas, which there's a video of over on Instagram. We talked about and practiced getting cord blood and doing Eldon cards and using glucometers, estimating blood loss, postpartum hemorrhage, and newborn exam. So we did a lot, covered a lot of ground. It's always so much fun. And it's also often, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be emotionally challenging in a lot of ways for everyone involved. I definitely got a migraine, not because of, well, maybe it was because of something emotional. I don't know. But it just feels kind of like a lot of energy and like a lot of information to take in. And there often are emotional components to many of these skills, either practicing them on someone else or having them practiced on you. And so it's just like kind of a lot. So we also, in addition to that, spent time, especially on Sunday, talking about sort of like, I did essentially like the most mini version of the desire map stuff from Danielle LaPorte in about 20 minutes, which is not enough time, but it was like a little taste of how to approach some of the things that came up, which are really common. And I think it was really helpful. So I want to talk about that a little bit here. Also, because yesterday, Marin and I hosted our first weekend retreat for Indie Birth Midwifery School students, which included some of the material from the Desire Map and Danielle LaPorte's work. So we're finding ways, and there's many other tools we use too, but this is one that's feeling really relevant right now. And it feels really important for a lot of reasons. So here at Indie Birth, we've talked a lot about, what is physiological birth? How does it look? We've shown you photos. We've shown you videos. We've got a book. Like, we also talk a lot about the politics. We talk about licensure and regulation and certification. Although we also are creating some really cool stuff around that. There's going to be a new mini course that maybe I'll release later today or tomorrow, actually. I'll have to talk to Marin about it. But it's pretty much done, which is going to be really exciting. It's called The Beginner's Guide to Radical Midwifery. And it's all about, it's essentially combining all of our resources that we have on the politics, licensure stuff, and bringing in some other cool resources too, to help people really explore that fully, ideally before they get into birth work. But if you're already in birth work, it's also going to be really powerful to do it at any point. So we've talked a lot about that, and we've talked about and like weaved these threads around like inner work and emotional work throughout all of it, but we've never like set a dedicated space necessarily, or created a structure for doing that. Some of it's in 13 Moons. We do a lot of it kind of one-on-one with our clients, but we're expanding that into some more like concentrated, like emotional self-development, self-growth, inner exploration content and materials. So it's really exciting. It is exciting, Lauren. And so something that came up during the weekend, last weekend, which honestly comes up every time we do a skills workshop, and every time that we really have, more than a surface level discussion with a group of student midwives. And that is this feeling like we can't, is the word I want to focus on. And I think I actually used it earlier and I caught myself, but I didn't want to go launch into the whole thing yet. So here, now I will. So student midwives feeling like, or midwives or birth workers or whatever, feeling like they can't do something because of rules, regulations, other midwives, essentially fear that they are going to be in trouble from some outside authority. And so that came up a couple times over the course of this weekend. It's come up other weekends. I shared a story about this really lovely student of ours who came from Sweden, whose husband is a doctor, a couple years ago, who said, my husband was just like shocked that we were going to practice IV skills on each other. And he thought that was a really bad idea. It's too advanced. And I liked to share this story with people practicing now, because the end of the story is that she got it on her first try. And she was like, I can't wait to tell him that I did this and that it was not hard and this is not advanced and women are more than capable of doing this. So, where was I going with that? I guess to bring up, we often have women say, like, I don't know where to get IV supplies, or I can't. If I got caught with this, I'd be in trouble. And so it really brings a lot to the surface when we actually start getting into the nitty gritty of, like, how do you want to show up to births? Not everybody has to bring all of this stuff. I don't necessarily bring all of the stuff that I teach at the skills workshop. The point of the skills workshop is to explore and build our skill set. That doesn't mean we have to use all of this all the time in every context. Doesn't mean we always have to have these things in our bag. It's to build, essentially to build our capacity and to build our, what's the word I'm looking for? Because it's not confidence. It is confidence, but it's not confidence. To build our own self-worth in this world of birth work, knowing, like, we are valuable in the birth space. So inevitably this bubbles up, like, oh, I'm not allowed to carry Pitocin, or I'm not allowed to do this. And so we had, like, a really good, like, come to Jesus talk, and explored it more at the end of the day around, like, we have to stop giving our power away. And this is not to say I think everybody should go out and do illegal things. Like, I'm not necessarily encouraging you to do that. But I'm also not discouraging you from doing whatever feels like it is in service of your highest self and in service of the women that you're working with. So, I definitely identify myself as an activist. I think that it's really interesting if we study the way that social justice movements work and how, like, big, large-scale social change happens. And it doesn't happen by everybody playing by the rules. And it doesn't happen when we let our voices and our skill sets be silenced because other people have told us what we can and can't do. And I have talked about this other places, so I won't wax on about it, but for me, it's been baby steps. And again, this might look different in different contexts, and the amount of boldness I can put forth changes depending on the moon phase and where I am, all those sorts of things. But like, the more that I've stepped into this and the more I've kind of unraveled the ties that bind us, this feeling of, like, oh, I'm only allowed in this box because this is the box they gave me. The more I've gotten outside of that, the more I can see how ridiculous it all is. Like, if I know how to do something, and so this is a good example. If somebody is trained in CPR and they see somebody on the street who needs CPR, they're going to do it, right? Like, I can't, and I should know what this is called, but there's, like, this societal understanding that the person who knows the most about how to help the person on the street should help that person. And they're not going to get in trouble for, like, practicing medicine, even though they're friggin' saving a person's life, possibly. So at a basic level, our society understands this, but then we get into this, like, super micromanagey place, which is patriarchy. It's patriarchy and it's capitalism, trying to control what we can do to make money, what we can do as women, helping other women during birth, which is, like, one of the most pivotal moments of a woman's life. It just becomes so crystal clear. And the more we can pull it all apart, thank you, Good Samaritan law. It was in there somewhere. Thank you, Lauren. And Freedom Seeker. The more we can pull that apart, I feel like the stronger we become. So I was at a place years ago where I did feel nervous about calling myself a midwife, even though I had good training, even though I had the blessing of many midwives, including medical-ish midwives. Everyone, from Marin, who I obviously respect so deeply and was my primary preceptor, to people who, to a nurse midwife, right? So, like, I've had kind of the gamut of midwives I've worked with who've all been like, yeah, you're competent, you're ready to do this. And even after that, I still was not sure, coming from a place of being not certified and not licensed. But I did it anyway. And I was just radically transparent with the women that I worked with at interview, and not even the ones I worked with, but just anyone who interviewed me about my training and where I was at. And little by little, I've really built that sense of worth up to the point where I could be anywhere in the world. Like me stepping over a line that's made up by a corrupt country, or many corrupt countries, right? Like these borders. Like if I step into Canada where I'm not recognized as a midwife, does that mean I'm not a midwife anymore? Like since when do we hinge our identity on the pieces of paper that we've purchased from someone else? So I think it's all just like really interesting. And if it wasn't interesting, I wouldn't keep thinking about it and talking about it and doing this work. So I hope you think this is interesting too. And we'll continue to explore those ideas on your own, or perhaps in this new course that we have coming out. It's a mini course. And so we've talked about the political stuff, but it's really interesting to start talking about it now in a more focused way around like, okay, but what are the emotions underneath, and what are sort of the limiting beliefs that are keeping us, from really rising up around the world as midwives and saying, and not just as midwives, like it's bigger than that, but that's what we're talking about today, right? But as midwives rising up and saying like, you can't get rid of us. Like we're here, we have this knowledge. There is no way to get rid of us. They've tried and they can't. And so, I think it's all just really, really exciting. It feels like there's a lot of this like revolutionary sort of spirit at the moment. And bold is a word that I keep coming back to, this boldness of just like, you know what, we're here, get used to it. And I'm really excited to be actively helping people who want to be birth workers, especially radical birth workers in their communities, really step into this. And I guess that's where all this is coming from, is we've seen a lot of people who are smart and capable and they get the training and then they just like aren't sure how to like become visible and put themselves out there. And so I have been doing a business coaching. It's really a lot of like mindset stuff and this emotional stuff. I've been doing that live on my podcast, so you should go check that out. I've got a couple episodes out, which have mostly been with doulas so far. And I'm planning to do some with student midwives and midwives as well. And I'm also planning to do some prenatal sessions with clients live, which is really fun. So if you know anybody who wants to check that out, I posted about it over on the platform, social.indiebirth.org, or find it on the Mighty Networks app. So there's like a lot of really fun, cool ideas. Essentially trying to like take what we're talking about and make it as concrete as possible for people to really wrap their heads around and, get it just more visible. So as the people we're working with are trying to become more visible, we're doing the same, because that's how this all works, right? What else did I want to say about that? I'm going to drink some water. I would love if people had questions, no pressure, but if you have them, I would love to hear them over in the chat. Oh, I know what I was going to share. Keep typing if you're typing a question for me. So a song that we played at the end of the workshop that I've been listening to a lot over the last few months, because it feels like it just goes with this whole theme so well, this theme of like, how do we move beyond this fear of persecution is really what it is, into doing something really and needed for our communities. So we're going to sound funny because I don't say the word ain't, but I'm going to do my best. So the lyrics are, all of my doors are open, got a full moon in that sky, which the full moon is on Saturday. just in case you didn't know. I'm leaving that darkness broken, blowing smoke rings out my mind, calling on all that's wild. Pages have been turned. Gonna reach into my fire, gonna let that old way burn. And then this is my favorite part. Well, I guess there's a lot of favorite parts, but the chorus is, I ain't afraid of shining. Maybe I'll say not, because I just feel too ridiculous saying ain't. I'm not afraid of shining. I'm not afraid of love. I'm going to stop denying. This time I won't run. And then I do like this part too, so I'll tell you. It's all in perfect timing. I'm crushing all my doubt. Step into warrior status. All things come back around. I'm pulling back my arrow. I'm shooting for the soul. Standing strong like mountain. I'm coming home. So I was listening to it, I think, the night before. Oh, why did that happen? I was listening to it the night before Sunday, so last Saturday, and just felt like, oh my gosh, this is really what I need to share with these women who are here for the skills workshop, who are, facing these questions and coming against some of these obstacles, which are really internal obstacles. And yes, there is the external, and yes, that's something that we should spend time on, but we have to figure it out internally first. And then we can come up with some really cool creative ideas to deal with the outside. So something that came up was like, in a particular state right now, they're again pushing for licensure. And it's like, okay, well, instead of being like, oh no, they're going to come get me and I'm scared and I'm angry, being like, okay, what do I believe? And what do I think is the best way forward? And what is the solution? And then how do we communicate with people, and maybe it's not you, maybe it's, maybe you are networking and working on this with others. We don't have to do it alone, but just like one idea I threw out was like, well, why don't we figure out a GoFundMe, some fundraising, whatever, and send a copy of this book, Making Midwives Legal, to every midwife in that state with like a handwritten note saying like, this is how I truly feel. Here's what I see being the possibility of a different way. Can we have a conversation about this instead of just being this like victim-y kind of place, which we all find ourselves in from time to time. Cool. So let's see. Lauren said, obviously ain't a Southerner. I know I'm not. I just feel I feel like I can't. Lauren also said that's an awesome song. I didn't catch the name of it. It's called, is it Open Door or Open Doors? One of the two, by Trevor Hall. And it's way better than me just reading it. So you should totally go listen to it after this. And then Honesty said, this is my alarm ringtone. I love starting my day to this sort of mantra. That's awesome. I love that song. And I think I sent it out in a newsletter recently too. Sidebar. I listened to a lot of Trevor Hall and Margo while I was pregnant with my son, Arrow. And Marin says, Trevor Hall, everything. Yes, all day, every day, Trevor Hall. And it wasn't, his name has had like a lot of really interesting synchronicities that I didn't know in the moment of choosing his name, but like over the last almost 2 years, I've been like, oh, that's weird. But one of the first things I noticed once we chose his name, which took us like 3 days, was we were listening to some of the same playlists I've been listening to while I was pregnant in the following like week or 2 weeks. And I realized like how many times they reference arrows. And this song wasn't out at that point. But Trevor Hall talks about arrows in other places too. And so does Margo. And I was like, I wonder if I was like subliminally like priming myself to name my son Arrow, even though it's not Arrow. It sounds the same. Super interesting. Also, total sidebar, there's a place called Arrow Stitch here in Duluth, which I did not know. And I drove by the building, and it is AERO, and I drove by the building probably like 50 plus times while I was pregnant, and I did not notice it until after I named him that, and I was like, that is too weird. Anyways, it's been here a long time. I think it's been here since before I was born. Maren said Trevor Hall was doing a live every Tuesday on Instagram. He's taking a break, but totally worth having on your radar if he gets back to it. And you should totally go back and watch the old ones because they're so good. Okay. Freedom Seeker says, then what is your option about licensure? I mean, we have so much stuff for you to check out if you are new to us. My first recommendation would be to read our book, Indie Birth, A Story of Radical Birth Love. My second recommendation would be to listen to the new podcast Maren just put out this week on PMAs. There's also a class. I'm not sure if it's still for sale on the website. Maren, maybe you can stick the link or something if it's still for sale, the PMA class that Jason taught. And then there's also, again, my total anarchist self who's going to say, just friggin' do it. I mean, like, you should get trained and you should have training and ideally an apprenticeship alongside some didactic learning. And it takes a couple years, typically somewhere between 3 and 5 years. And once you're ready, our recommendation, whether you have a license or not, is to just really embed yourself in your community and be of service and of value to them. So for me, that looks like teaching and networking and being here for people who need support during the childbearing year. So, you know, sometimes I get texts and phone calls and emails about people who've had a miscarriage, for example, and just, you know, need someone to bounce ideas off of, maybe if they're trying to get pregnant, or people who had a really shitty birth and want to process it. Like, I'm just here and I'm available. And by being here and available and teaching cool classes, no one cares about license, no license. So that's what we teach. That's what we talk about. I'd be happy to talk more. Yes, Maren put the link to our book. We do consultations. We're probably going to be coming out with some kind of like midwifery mentorship and business coaching in the next year. So watch for that. But we're always available for like one-time consultations. Just send us an email if you want to talk about what that actually looks like. Right. The moms don't care, but the states do. But what? So what? I don't know. What's the point? They won't hunt. They might hunt you down, but they probably won't. I don't know. This is a conversation for somewhere else, because this is what I'm getting. This is what I was speaking to at the beginning of this, is that we have this fear of persecution, which in actuality isn't often what happens. And there's also the piece of like, maybe that's what needs to happen, is we need women to be willing to put themselves on the line. And a license doesn't protect either, honestly. So you can read all about that in our book. I think that's all I'm going to say about that for this exact moment. Listen to the podcast. Maren says you must deal with your fear, because if you're fearful of being hunted down and you have a license, you're probably going to get hunted down even with your license, is the truth. So that is true. Also, if moms don't care and they want to support you, this is where the revolution comes from. The revolution does not come from us all playing by the rules that oppress us. And so my opinion is, if you don't believe in licensure and you don't think that's the way forward, either don't have one or don't be a midwife. Like, find something. There's a million jobs we can do. And the more of us that, it's just like the mask stuff right now. People that are willing to just like put on the mask, even though they don't believe in it, just to like continue living their lives, instead of saying, you know, this is an example a lot of people have. It's like, if the people that won't wear one will go into a store without one on, and all of a sudden every other person is saying, oh, we don't have to wear one. And the person who's not wearing one says like, I don't know, I'm just not gonna. And it emboldens other people. So the more we can do that, and that might not be you, that might not be the right role for you, but the more women we can speak to and reach who are the right person to like bold and out, saying like the madness has to stop. Why do we think that we get to regulate who someone can have at their birth? I mean, it all just completely falls apart, right? Something I also come back to a lot of times is, what is midwifery? What I do is not what a lot of other midwives do. So like when you actually like try to define what midwifery is and figure out like what a person would be allowed and not allowed to do, even under some of these state rules, it falls apart. A good example is with Gloria LeMay in Canada. And you can read about this other places, but you know, she was told she could not practice midwifery anymore. And she said, then tell me what I'm not allowed to do. They said, you can't do vaginal exams. So she said, fine, I won't do vaginal exams then. I could go to births without doing vaginal exams. That's fine. Also, how would anyone ever know if I gave someone a vaginal exam in their own home, right? Like it all just starts to, it's like the emperor has no clothes. Yes, let's see. Lauren said, truth. Honestly, I know more licensed midwives who've been persecuted than I'm licensed. Totally. Stephanie said the revolution will not be certified. Totally. There's also a really good book called The Revolution Will Not Be Funded. Is that what it's called? No, I can't remember. It's all about how nonprofits, there's no way to make nonprofits revolutionary. Danielle says, wondering how you began to work through that fear. Resources. I know it's a massive topic, but something I'm struggling with. Yeah, I mean, our courses, that's what they are, is they're not just how to be a midwife or how to be a doula. They are comprehensive in that they also help people work from A to Z through all the things that we've seen come up as we've educated people over the years. If that makes sense. So I'm reading a book right now. You know, we're always learning and adding tools and resources, but I'm reading a book right now about like limiting beliefs and like common obstacles that people create for themselves. And so I'm probably gonna be creating some more content actually for both the Birth Warrior Project and the Indie Birth and Midwifery School. But, you know, either taking our educational stuff or being part of some of our programs and doing some live coaching with us, I think is a really great way to move forward. I know that sounds like I'm telling you just like buy our stuff, but honestly, like that's what we do. And we're some of the only people in the world talking about these issues. Lauren says, as a previous student, I will testify their courses do just that. Thank you so much, Lauren. Danielle said that's definitely what started this journey, loving 13 minutes. That's awesome. I'm so glad you're enjoying that, which is still a pay what you are able option for people who are watching. If you are interested, indiebirth.org/13 moons, comprehensive birth education. Pay what you can. But yeah, how to work through it is, like you said, it's a big topic. But the biggest thing is to sit with it. Like, what are you actually afraid of? And then I was going to segue a little bit into some more of the desire map kind of like debrief from yesterday, figuring out how you do want to feel. And like, I know for me, if I had a license, I would, as a midwife, I would not feel how I want to feel. I would feel restricted and I would feel, let's see, how would I feel? This is a fun exercise. If I had a license here in Minnesota, I would feel restricted. I would feel like, I've never really explored this. This is interesting. I should get out my sheet of feelings. Maybe I will. Hold on. Let's see. Feelings list. Nonviolent communication. It's for the win. Still early into that if you haven't checked it out. When Lauren says nauseous at the thought. Yeah, like it totally makes me feel sick. It would make me feel, honestly, like it would make me feel ashamed. I would feel, let's see, displeased, disgruntled, irritated. And maybe I could talk about this. I am able to do birth certificates here in Minnesota, but even that right now is making me feel some of these ways too. Just like, I'm reading through the list. It's a good list. I'll put the link up for you all. I'd feel contempt and just like disgusted and repulsed. A lot of aversion. So those are all under the aversion category. I'd be like pining and yearning for a different way. I'd be envious and jealous of the midwives who are figuring out how to do it without a license. I'd also feel really just like unhappy. Wretched is on this list. I don't know if I'd say that. I don't know if I've ever said I feel wretched, but It's not in my feelings vocabulary yet, but it would not feel how I wanted it to feel, is what I'm saying. I would not be meeting my need that I have. I have a strong need for autonomy. And so if I felt, I've always said this, if I felt like I had to get a license, if tomorrow I all of a sudden was like, you know what, I'm too scared, or like this is too stressful, or there, all of a sudden that fear came back of being hunted down. If that came back and was not something I could manage, then I would either get a different job, or I've said I'd go to school and become an obstetrician. So those are some of my thoughts because I've wheedled over this for so many years. My first birthday I attended was 10 years ago. And I came into this knowing I never wanted a license, which I'm so grateful for, and is also super unique and sort of weird. I was 21 when I went to my first birth. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. I was 21, about to turn 22. Just a baby. But because of my sort of like really solid inner compass and understanding of my own like politics, which are based in my needs. All of our politics are based in our needs. Nonviolent communication, again, for the win. I need that sense of autonomy, and I need room for creativity. And that's what we talk about in our book, if you haven't read it. I just posted the link for the feelings inventory list, which is so helpful. Like if I'm in a fight with my partner, I'm like, let me get out my feelings list and tell you how I feel. Because usually when we're yelling at people, we're not actually saying what we feel, we're just yelling at them. Oh, that's what I was going to share. Good segue, me. I'll also put this link. There's a 3-hour class from Marshall Rosenberg. It was done a long time ago. So if you're interested in the nonviolent communication stuff, it's not just about communication. And this came up for me yesterday as we were working through the desire map with our Indie Birth Midwifery School students during our weekend retreat, which was so fun. We were talking about these feelings, and often in the desire map, a lot of the feelings are actually needs in the world of nonviolent communication. So I was starting to see this really cool, like, overlapping and blending that I am not clear on how I'm going to combine necessarily, but I would encourage you to check it out because actually my really lovely apprentice, Maria, posted this for the skills workshop group because she was saying a lot of the same themes kept coming up, which is essentially that when we're communicating or when we're making choices, and choices are a way of communicating, from a place of fear or shame or guilt, like we are doing a disservice to others and we are doing a disservice to ourselves, and we're not being authentic. And so the way for us to all collectively move forward towards something better, and that's what we all want. We want something better, like for ourselves, for our kids, for the world. The way to do that is to be authentic and to be honest. And so that's what it comes down to for me. And I totally was not planning on launching into a licensure lecture. But thank you for your questions. It's so helpful. So for me, the licensure conversation comes back to honesty. And for me, it's dishonest because if I signed a piece of paper saying that I would follow rules around being a midwife, I would be lying. There is no world in which I am capable of following the rules. If a woman looks at me and says, I'm outside of those rules, will you still help me? My answer would not always be yes. And it is not always yes as an unlicensed midwife. But I would want that choice to be mine, not because I had signed a piece of paper. Does that make sense? And I wouldn't, there's no way I would be able to follow those rules. And I go back often when I've had occasional people during interviews ask me like where that comes from, like where my beliefs around this all come from. Usually those people aren't the right people for me. So I've luckily had that question a lot less lately. But when I first started out, I had more people say like, so why does this feel important to you to not be licensed? Because I talk about it very explicitly in my materials that they read before we get together. And I often tell them my own stories. So I've had 2 full-term babies, both pregnancies. I fell outside of the scope of what a licensed midwife was allowed to do, not just in pregnancy, but also during the birth with my first birth. So we counted it up, I think, after my daughter Celosio was born. She's 6.5. I had high blood pressure during my pregnancy. Do I think everyone who has high blood pressure should have a home birth? No, I do not. But for me, it was the right choice. And but we counted after she was born. Maybe it was after, I can't remember exactly, but it was either before or after she was born. I counted how many rules a licensed midwife would have broken in doing what I wanted for my birth. And it was over 10. I would have broken over 10 rules because of how long the birth was and the order in which things happened and the blood pressure and the this and the that and all of it, right? Like I pushed for a billion years. Like I was outside of the scope of what the state of Arizona thought a licensed midwife should be allowed to do. And so if I'd been working with a licensed midwife, they would have either had to break the rules or abandon me. And in a lot of circles out there, and I have an article on this, I can't remember the title. Oh yeah, I can. It's actually called Go Risk Yourself. I wrote that after reading in a Facebook group this thread about like, what would you do if your client was refusing transport to the hospital? And like, that would have been me if I'd been working with a licensed midwife who wasn't willing to break the rules. And every student midwife in this group was like, well, you've got to just call 911 on them. And they can turn them away or not, but like, you can't just let people do what they want. You have to like call an ambulance on their behalf, which is disgusting to me. I feel disgusted by that. So you can go read my thoughts on that at Go Risk Yourself, the article on the website if you want, indiebirth.org, find it there. It's also in our new course that we're going to be putting out very soon, the new mini course, the beginner's guide to radical midwifery. Okay. Questions are welcome. Otherwise, oh yeah, I was going to pull a card for us. Sometimes I do it at the beginning, sometimes I do it at the end. So Russell has been kind of hoarding my mythical goddess tarot deck. He's been doing them every morning, which is really cute. But that's one of the reasons I haven't been using them the last few weeks. And so I stole them back to do this today. So I'm going to pull us all a card. Thank you, Olivia. I was preaching, wasn't I? I get on a really get up on that soapbox sometimes, don't I? Which reminds me, if anyone out there likes to transcribe things, I think it'd be fun to have some transcriptions of these lives for people who don't want to sit and listen for an hour. Maybe there's some nuggets of truth in there. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle and I'm just going to pull a card. I'm trying to think if there are any other big themes that came up this week. I guess I've been thinking a lot about movement, and I feel like I don't even know how to describe it, but I feel like something has shifted in my like way I've been thinking about movement. It's been so cold here. Finally, in the last few days, it's gotten warmer, so we went on a family walk today, which was super fun. There's this trail where they have like gnomes hidden all over and like stories along the way, and this is like enchanted forest loop. So we did that this morning with the family in a while because it's been really cold and I haven't been able to walk as much as I would like to, but it's made me think more about movement and like the feeling of being obligated to do it instead of just enjoying it. So I did there's a bunch of free classes from a woman whose business is called Koya Love, Qoya, if you're not familiar with Koya. I think her website's like koya.love or something like that, but you could Google her. And she's got a bunch of free classes, and there's some different themes, and some of them actually go really well, and I'm going to probably put one of them in the newsletter this week. They go really well with like this whole fear, persecution thing. We did one the other day as a family, actually, that she that it. He's like, I feel like I'm practicing for like the hippie festival. It was so fun. Okay, so I'm gonna pull a card. Sometimes I like to pull more than one. We'll see. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. Oh, I could sing an eagle. I think she's riding an eagle, and she's got a bow and arrow, which is so cool because we were just talking about open doors, pulling back my arrow and shooting for the soul. Sweet. I'm going to read to you from her little booklet the interpretation that goes along with this card. But I'd love to invite you to just sort of like feel out what that brings to mind for you. So it's this Maiden Wind Clarity card. Like Eagle Eye. I feel like I've pulled this one before, but not a lot, so I'm not as familiar with it. Okay. So the powerful Maiden of Wind exemplifies absolute clarity of mind. The laser precision of her focused gaze brings her to her goal, her arrow of intent hitting its mark. The maiden's keen and steadfast eye cuts through all distraction and mental haze. She is expert at casting out what is in the way of her target. Flying high on golden eagle's wings, she is unbound by earthly perspective, flying free with crystal clarity to her goals. The Wind Maiden is here to give you clarity of mind, to see through illusion, to make the right decisions to achieve your objective. Let your mind be focused like an arrow that hits the mark of your intent. Move forward to your goals with the new vision and clarity that the Maiden of Wind brings. Well, that seems perfect for what we've been talking about. The first part of the desire map, which we did with our students yesterday, and you can totally Google it, find all of Danielle LaPorte's work, totally check it out. I highly encourage you to do that. I really am liking her. This is like the new desire map course workbook. It's the white one. There's a purple one on her website. I like the white one better. It's new and I don't know, I like it. But the first part of it is getting like crystal clear about your core desired feelings or how you want to feel most of the time in your life. The second part she calls goals with soul, and it's then taking those core desired feelings and saying, okay, if this is how I want to feel, what do I need to do to feel that way in every aspect of life? And so totally bringing us back to what we were just talking about earlier around, licensing is an example. Like, how do I want to feel? And my core desired feelings are sweetness, magical, and cozy. One that I've sort of not had on the official list, but another like one that I've thought a lot about in the last year is, it's more of a phrase. It's like honey heart. Like I just want like golden honey kind of feelings. And then taking those and then applying them to choices and my schedule and how do I want my office to look? And, what do I want to do with my kids? What do I want to eat? How do I want to move my body? Like, it's so amazing to have kind of like the roadmap just like appear before you when you can get clear about that first part. So instead of being like, I want to be a midwife and I only have these rigid options to do that within, and I have to just pick which one. Like, no, start with how do I want to feel? And then apply that in, do you see what I'm saying? It's a reverse engineering. So then you're like, is there an option or can I create my own option that will allow me to feel those ways? If not, maybe being a midwife isn't the right next move for me. Maybe I need to explore some other options, right? Cool. So I'm just going to read some of the comments over here. Olivia said, yes, we had some sun yesterday. Nice. Got to stretch in the sun. In my stretching, I got this thought that I'm ready to explore yoga. Cool. Thank you. I'm feeling so much more clarity. Thank you for holding the space yesterday. It was magical for me. Good. See, magical. It's Marin and I did all of this separately. Like we did our own desire mapping stuff. And then it was funny because we both have magical on our lists. And we both came to that separately. So I'm glad it felt magical. It makes sense that it felt magical because that's what Mary and I both were trying to bring to the table. See, it's magic. So, yeah, I'm feeling like this shift, and I've talked about this other times too, but I'm definitely feeling this shift in my work. I still love being a midwife, and I love working with pregnant women, and I love working with doulas and midwives. I love all the things I'm doing now. I don't want to stop doing any of them, but I do feel a shift in terms of wanting to work of like the clarity and the feelings and like even greater radical change as a result, and helping people kind of take those obstacles apart for themselves so that they can bring their cool secret sauce to the table, because we need it. We need everyone doing that now. Like no more, just go listen to Open Doors by Trevor Hall. That he'll say it better than I can. So I think that's it for me. It's 1:52. I've talked a lot on the soapbox, so I can step down. Oh, last thing, I'm exploring, because one of our delightful Indie Birth Midwifery School students invited me, I'm exploring Clubhouse, the app. I'm a skeptic of all things social media, but it seems intriguing to me in that it's different, and that it feels like it is a place where like ideas can be shared, and maybe there can be like more meaningful, cool interaction. Don't get me wrong, I love a good meme now and then, but I like that it's audio only, and I would love to explore doing something like this, or even something like a free birth worker chat, and also a free like pregnant mama chat once a week on there. But I would only want to do that if and when there are enough people from our indie birth community on it. So if you are on there, please find me, Margo Blackstone. And if you're not on there and you need an invite, I think I have one left at the moment, but I would imagine I'll be getting more because I've been hosting rooms for the couple people who are on there enough. So I think that's something that would be kind of cool to explore, especially until Mighty Networks, our social platform, again, social.indiebirth.org, until they have the live video function, which is supposed to happen this year, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So kind of a cool thing to check out. And if you need an invite, just make sure you find me either by email or on the social platform, and make sure I have your phone number. Lauren says, I just joined today and I really like the platform. I'd love an invite if one is free, says Stephanie. Yeah, Stephanie, just send me your phone number. And the best way to do that would either be by email or by message on the platform. And I will send you that. Cool. I think that's a wrap. I just always like to point people towards our website, indiebirth.org. Make sure you're on our newsletter. You can do that at the bottom of pretty much every page on our website. And if you haven't checked out 13 Moons, check that out. It's amazing. Again, it's pay what you can birth education, comprehensive birth education. And I like to joke that it's maybe too comprehensive. We also have so many really cool things. We have a mini course for people who might want to be a doula called Doula Dreams, indiebirth.org/doula dreams. We have this new mini course coming out called The Beginner's Guide to Radical Midwifery. So watch for that in the next little bit. We also have a full doula training called the Birth Warrior Project for anyone who wants to become a doula. And we have sort of a pathway for people who want to become midwives, which looks like going through the intro to, it's called the Intro to Autonomous Midwifery. And this is all on the website. And also email me if you need any direction. We also do discovery calls and clarity calls for people who are trying to figure out which path they want to take. But the midwifery path looks like the Introduction to Autonomous Midwifery. And then we have our full Indie Birth Midwifery School, which is essentially an 18-month-ish program. So we've got it all. We've got it all for you. There's just endless resources, tons of articles, tons of podcast episodes. And we also do virtual consults. The page says virtual prenatals, but you could be preconception, you could be pregnant, you could be postpartum, you could be a birth worker who just wants to like talk about what's going on for you. We'll probably set up a separate page for that at some point, but if you book through that page, that's perfectly fine. Our rates are the same for all of those things. So we're here. We want to help you. Danielle said, thank you, Margo, for your time and your insights. So appreciated. You are so welcome. Thank you all for being here on Sunday. This is really fun, and I'd love to connect more with you all throughout the week. So don't be a stranger, and feel free to send me a message if anything from this really resonated, if you have questions. Again, the best way to get me is either on the platform, social.indiebirth.org, or by email, margo@indiebirth.org. So I'm so glad you're feeling inspired. I'm feeling inspired now too. I was feeling a little sleepy, truthfully, at the start of this, but now I'm ready to, I don't know, maybe do a cartwheel or something, which I did do a cartwheel yesterday and I sort of hurt my wrist, so maybe I won't do a cartwheel. Thanks, Lauren. I'm glad you loved this chat. I'll see you all here again next week at the same time, if not before. Bye, everyone.